help you?
Hi, I just wrote down a few questions I was hoping you could answer.
Okay, have a seat and we can talk about it.
I'm just so confused on how this happened.
What happened?
How he happened.
Well, it started when the sperm reached the secondary oocyte, which is viable for 12 to 24 hours after it cast out by the ovary. The sperm is attracted to the oocyte by the chemicals that act as homing devices, allowing them to locate the oocyte.
What happens when the sperm reaches the oocyte?
100 of their acrosomes rupture. This releases enzymes that break down the cement that holds the follicle cells together around the oocyte. At this point, it has found a path and made contact with the membranes of the oocyte.
Well, what happens to the sperm that don't get in contact with the membrane?
Well, the sperm that comes along later, after hundreds of sperm have gone through acrosomal reaction to expose the membrane, it is in the best position to be the fertilizing sperm. Once a single sperm has penetrated the oocyte, it completes the second meiotic division, forming the ovum and a polar body.
So at this point, the sperm has penetrated the oocyte. Then what happens? Are there any other sperm? If so, are they able to do the same thing?
You see, after the sperm enters, changes occur in the fertilized egg to prevent other sperm from entering. Fertilization will then occur at the moment genetic material of a sperm combines with that of an ovum to form a fertilized egg or a zygote.
What exactly is a zygote?
It represents the first cell of a new individual.
Oh, so what does it do after it's formed?
And then starts to go down the uterine tube. As it begins this journey, it starts to undergo rapid meiotic cell divisions, first forming 2 cells, then 4, and so on. The stage is known as cleavage.
Does the cleavage do anything important?
Yes, it does. It provides a large number of cells to serve as building blocks for constructing the embryo.
Oh, okay. And then the embryo just sits there and continues to grow.
I'm Dr. Love. Nice to meet you guys.
Hi.
What's going on in here?
I was just about to explain to her what an embryo does after it started to be constructed.
Oh, here, I'll explain this. By the time the embryo reaches the uterus, it's all about 16 cells. The uterine endometrium isn't fully prepared to receive the embryo, so the embryo floats free in the uterine cavity using the uterine secretions for nutrients.
You said it's only evolved about 16 cells. How big does it have to be before it starts to do something?
The embryo will develop until it has about 100 cells. It then hollows out to form a ball-like structure, a blastocyst, or a chronic vessel. It also secretes a hormone called HCG, which will prod the corpus luteum of the ovary to continue producing its hormones.
What's a blastocyst? What does it do?
The blastocyst has 2 important functional areas. The trophoblast, which forms the large fluid sphere, and the inner cell mass, a small cluster of cells displaced by one side. By day 7 after ovulation, the blastocyst has attached to the endometrium and eroded a small area of the lining, embedded itself in a velvety mucosa. All this is happening while still developing, and 3 primary germ layers are being formed from inner cell mass.
What are the germ layers and what do they do?
The primary germ layers are the ectoderm, which gives rise to the nervous system, the endoderm, which forms mucosa and associated glands, and the last one is the mesoderm, which gives rise to virtually everything else.
So, my friend and I were talking the other day about implantation, and she said that at this point in the process, it's usually been completed, and the uterine mucosa has grown over the burrowed embryo. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
What happens after it gets implanted?
The trophoblast part of the blastocyst develops elaborate projections called chronic villi, which cooperate with the tissues of the mother's uterus to form the placenta.
Oh yeah, I remember her also saying something about how after the placenta is formed, the plate-like embryonic body that's surrounded by a fluid-like sac called the amnion attaches to the blood vessel containing stalk of tissue.
Yes, that stalk of tissue is known as the umbilical cord.
What comes after that?
Generally, by the 3rd week, the placenta is functioning to deliver nutrients and oxygen to remove waste from the embryonic blood. This exchange are made through the placenta barrier. By the 8th week of embryonic development, the groundwork has been completed, while the organs have been laid down, and the embryo looks distinctly human. By the 9th week, the embryo is referred to as a fetus.
That's about it with the embryonic and fetal development. Do you have any other questions?
I want to show you something real quick. I want to show you how it pretty much all happens. So here is the second oocyte where the sperm cell will come into the uterine tube. The uterine tube kind of goes into the uterus. It fertilizes itself and it comes into the uterus pretty much, right? And then as it gets in the uterus and starts meeting the eggs, it will turn into a zygote, which is pretty much a fertilizing egg. It's pretty much the first cell of a new individual. And then as it comes into the second stage, it's the early cleavage, which is the division of cells in the early embryo, producing a cluster of cells of the same size, which is the eggs and the sperm cells clustering. And here's the morula. The morula is a solid ball of cells resulting from division of the fertilized ovum. Blastula is formed, as you can see. And as we come down to the early blastocysts, it comes down to early development of the human, processes ICM, which forms the embryo. And then pretty much the exact same thing, just kind of a later stage, is the late blastocyst, which is just about to turn into a fetus, getting ready to stage. As weeks and weeks go on, and months, it turns into a fetus, and as the fetus goes on, it's pretty much an unborn offspring more than 8 weeks after conception. Thank you guys for your time. That's about all I have to say.
Thank you so much for explaining this to me. Now I fully understand.
You're very welcome.
Let's go.
Work. You see me happy work. You see me do me dirt. That's how me.
I was just about to explain to her what an embryo does after it has started to be constructed.
Oh, here, I'll explain this. By the time the embryo reaches the uterus, it's a ball about 16 cells. The uterine endometrium is fully prepared to receive the embryo. So
I was about to explain to her what an embryo does after it has started to be constructed.
Oh, I'll explain this. By the time the embryo reaches the uterus, it's about a ball of 16 cells. The uterine endometrium. Guys!
You don't mess up!
I was just about to explain to her what an embryo does after it has started to be constructed.
Oh, I'll explain this. By the time the embryo reaches the uteral.
I thought it was
Bro, that is on me.
Oh
That is on
my
me.
god.